Motion to go, Elaine? Oh,
You want to go live?
oh, yes,
Yeah.
we're not live yet. Wait a minute.
We are
Sorry.
now.
We are now?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So we have a motion from Elaine Daly, a second by Chris Petras. Any discussion, corrections, modifications on the minutes? In that case, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good, thank you. Okay, first up is Kelly. Are you online?
I'm here. Yep. It may not sound like me. So for those of you who have not had the pleasure, it is possible to get a summer cold 5 days before the official start of summer. So it is me and not me in disguise. So our office is very busy right now. It's kind of our end of year, beginning of year for assessment purposes. So for those who aren't intimately familiar with the assessment calendar, we end one year on June 30th and start a new year on July 1st. So a lot of administrative work is happening in their office right now. So nothing of particular interest, just that we're all very busy and things are going very well.
So everyone has Kelly's report. Have any questions for her, specific or general? If you're back on, please just say key.
Kelly, at the, one of the other meetings, you had said that you were losing two towns or villages. Is that correct? I see Owasco.
No, just one, and it was Owasco.
That will leave you with 4?
Leaves us with 3, which is that's the appropriate ratio to employees, the staff to town ratio that is ideal for the department. So we're in the right spot now. And Wasco has found a candidate successfully, and that person has started as of a week or 2 ago. So that transition is going very nicely.
All right, thanks.
Kelly, at one time, the state of New York used to surcharge towns and villages that were, let's say that when they sold a piece of property, they were off like 30 or 40%. They would have a surcharge on the next go around. Does the state still charge for the errors that we make in our assessment? Like,
I'm not familiar with that, Tim. Maybe you could explain it a little better. That's not something I've ever heard of. Do you have an example, maybe?
I'm just saying that there used to be a surcharge on.
Can maybe a timeline for how it used to be? I've been doing this about 18 years and I'm not familiar with it. So I'm looking for a little help here to understand the question.
I started a little earlier than you. And some of the towns used to increase their assessment so that they could get away from, let's say, the school tax. If they would get a credit if the rate of error was less than before. So
I guess the answer would be no, I'm not, unless someone else is. I'm not familiar with that practice, and it is not a current or a near recent practice. Let me explain it that way, unless someone else has another idea on what you mean.
let's say a large business sold on Grand Ave and the assessment was way low and sold for 6 times or 60 times more than what it was assessed for. I mean, that person.
The assessor would be penalized, is that what you're
No.
saying?
No, I mean, but that rate of error, is there any way to make that margin closer? I mean, do we reassess sooner or less frequent? To make sure that our assessments are closer to the actual selling price?
Did you hear
No,
that?
I heard the question. I'm trying to figure out how best to answer it because there's I think maybe a disconnect from the practice. So that what you've described is not something that has ever been part of real property tax law that I'm aware of. But what I can say is that each year the state does statistical sampling of all sales to look to see how far off of the market value that they are. And they send those reports to each municipality to let them determine when it would be prudent to do a reassessment. So it's statistical information that's gathered, but I'm not aware of it being tied to any funding or a penalty or a bonus or a demerit or anything along those lines. It's just a matter of presenting the statistical information to those towns or cities and letting them make the determination for whether or not they want to proceed with a reassessment. So there's a lot of variables that affect the market from year to year. So that's why the state does, like I said, it's just a sampling. It's not all properties. They don't measure every single sale. They look at them on the whole, because you're going to have sales that are not of arm's length with unusual conditions, especially with commercial properties. Sometimes there's multiple parcels. Sometimes part of the business is part of the transaction. So there's a lot more that goes into it, but I'm not recalling anything that you're describing as being part of a state practice.
Let me give you one example. Fleming didn't reassess for 25 years.
Right.
Must be a reason for that.
Was a flip.
I would say that's a political question for their town board, because there's a stigma associated with reassessments, especially if they aren't viewed as successful in the public eye, and therefore there's a tremendous amount of pressure on those individual elected boards to determine whether or not they want to proceed with a new one. And I think there's a lot of misinformation about reassessments as well. So when they go well, and it brings everybody's values up to market value, it's viewed as a success. But if the public relations isn't good, or the individual hired to do the work doesn't do it fairly and consistently across the board, the backlash usually comes on those elected boards. And if it's not something that they're comfortable dealing with, they just avoid it and put it off. So I think that's what had happened in Fleming and in some of our other towns. But I think we've moved away from that for the most part. We don't have a lot of towns that haven't done a reassessment in decades, or who aren't planning to. So I think we're overall in a pretty good position on that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments? Great. Kelly, thank you very much. You don't
Okay.
sound old, you sound good. So
Oh, well, it's a new sound for me. So thank you.
So Jim, we have your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
You can.
Okay. Little technical difficulty here. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. All right. Yeah, there's just two things in the report, Keith. We're looking at the installment agreements. We do an annual review, and Jenny does an excellent job of monitoring these. And the bottom line is, by keeping people in line with their delinquent taxes with these particular installment agreements, we keep a minimum of foreclosures on the board. So this actually helps us keep that number low. And Jenny does a fantastic job monitoring that. The second thing on the report was there was a little miscommunication between CCC and the retirees and Excelis. And some of the retirees were enrolled into a plan for their health insurance that they didn't anticipate. Courtney got involved with that and acted as a kind of a go-between, and actually got all of that straightened out. And I just said what she did for 1 month in about 2 seconds. It was an amazing job, and now everything is back to normal, and the retirees are all set. And you, being one of them, probably knows a little bit about this. So that was that on that report, or on that point. The other thing is that our finance committee met last week. We will meet again next week after the public hearing at the legislative meeting on June 22nd and proceed from there. So that's my report.
Thank
Any
you.
questions?
Does anyone have questions for Jim? You're no. Jim's got one.
I know, I was waiting.
Jim, it was nice to see the sales tax is up by a lot, isn't it?
27%.
Thank you.
Now that I was just curious, Jim, it's Elaine, that you had put something in the email about, don't celebrate too soon. There could be adjustments because I wasn't clear. Those are tentative figures by the state? Is that what you meant by?
Well, well, Elaine, I always thought those figures were solid. And then today, after I sent that out, I did get another email from another source that said the state may adjust those figures. And I'm not quite sure why. They may adjust them based on last year's. The time period for last year came right when New York City was being locked down and upstate wasn't yet, but then it happened. So they said, be prepared because the state may adjust those figures. And I'm still not quite clear why. They're either there or they aren't. So I'm going to, I just got that email this afternoon. So I'm going to be researching that. And I may have some clarification from Dave Lucas, who sent an email out late this afternoon from NISAC. So I will keep you all informed on that. I don't see the sales tax going down, but that figure today was really, really good, and other counties are experiencing similar figures. So I will keep you all informed of anything that I know.
It has everything to do with assessment.
That's right. Tim's
Well,
not-
we have it in hand, so they can't take that back. So we'll see what happens. I don't think it's as bad as what I'm hearing as far as a readjustment goes. So, but I'll keep you informed of whatever I hear. So, yeah.
Okay, any other questions for our treasurer? Human Resources, Lisa, are you on?
I'm right here.
Oh, no, there she is. Lisa's right here.
Goodbye. Fortunately, I'm losing my voice. As you can see how we've done from 2020 to 2020. Just finished giving a police exam on the 15th. And we just did another exam. And we're going to be doing another one for DSS, a lot of human services, nurse case. People coming up on the 26th. So that'll be our next big group that will be. Actually, we're going to have exams through July and August as a result of the shutdown. Exams we're getting.
Is the May,
That's the one that's on the 15th.
on the where?
That was on the 15th.
Oh, it says,
Yeah.
Excuse me, Jim, can you please mute yourself? It's causing some feedback for people at home.
And as we've been busy with several different items, and also to add to that, Colleen does our duck training, is able to help out with a virtual we participated in with Department of Labor, and we've in process for the Director of Veteran Services. With the steering committee is Ryan Colligan.
so does anyone have any questions about HR? Thanks, Lisa. I don't know why
I'm just being very quiet back here.
Yeah, I know, I looked at you several times, forgive me. So, okay, unless does anyone have any other general questions or comments before we do resolutions? Very good. So the first, we have two Ways and Means resolutions. The one is the local law to establish the finance director. And the second is a resolution to authorize cancellation of penalty and interest of $224 on the property in the town of Somerville. Do you want to do these separately or together? I'll entertain a motion for either collective or individual, depending on what you want to do.
I'll move them as a bundle.
Okay, we have a motion as a bundle. Do we have a second? We have a second, from Mr. Pinckney. All in favor? Oh, wait, is there any discussion? Forgive me. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It passes. Very good. Thank you. Health and Human Services. Madam Dale.
Yes, Health and Human Services met just last night and we went over 10 resolutions. All of them received full support from the Health and Human Services Committee. And I would offer them up as a group, HH1 through HH10, unless someone would like to discuss any of them individually.
Move them.
So we have a motion for Mr. Pinckney to bundle 1 through 10 HHS resolutions. Do we have a second? Mr. Vitale, second. Any discussion on any of these? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. Passes. Thank you. Government operations. Brian, have you joined us?
That's my shirt.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask because I should have known that. No, I do know that. Mr. Peters is the vice chair, so.
I'm glad you remembered. Thanks for thinking of that. Mr. Chair, Government Operations has 2 resolutions. They've been through committee. I'll offer them as a bundle unless anyone wants them to be separated.
Is that a motion?
That is a motion.
So we have a motion to bundle the 2 from government ops. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Ms. Daly. Any discussion of either of these?
Yes.
Yes, we have a question or discussion. Mr. Latimer.
Well, as I discussed with legal, I just didn't want to have our new ethics board or code be restrictive in regards to people who can serve on different boards. As long as we disclose our conflicts with certain aspects of government, such as a former member was a member of the college. He didn't vote on the college issues. I know that other people on the board have loved ones, you know, in other departments, and they shouldn't be excluded from voting if they say that they have this relationship with college or any other department, that it's not restrictive and that they can serve, they can get elected and serve their terms. I just don't want to have this new code somehow keep people from serving.
Yeah, I think the only restrictions, and you guys that are on the committee, correct me on this, but I think the only restrictions are kind of in a couple of categories. One is that if you have a personal financial gain, then that's a conflict. And I think we'd all agree to that. That, however, technically does not apply to not-for-profits. So but if you're in business and you gain, you stand to gain personally from a transaction with the county, that's a problem. The only other area is there is a section that says if you were an employee of the county, paid or non-paid, and you were in a position to participate in high-level policy discussion and setting, then you have you're not allowed to represent any issue that comes up that relates to that. And there is a way out. Way out's the wrong way to do it. There is a disclosure process where you can disclose what it is, and the legislature then can set that aside. So it does address those, and I think satisfactory.
Now, in regards to profit, if somebody says that project I'm not voting at because my wife is going to work for a milk company or
somebody else is from the town, is that considered a profit?
Well, the person could recuse themselves, yeah, that would be, I think that would solve the problem, right? Yeah, so if someone says, yeah, I stand to gain from this, or my immediate family
And
stands to
They
gain. So I exclude
excuse,
myself, yeah, right, yeah. The thing that we should be doing that we sometimes fail to do is recusal, hard word for me to say, the technically requires someone to absent themselves from the discussion, not just to remain silent. And so.
Speak for yourself. I'm pretty good about it.
Yes, you are.
You mean leave the room
Leave the room.
for the
Right,
discussion?
discussion. Technically, I don't know if you've ever done it. Technically, I don't think you have to.
Because it's
say-
not for profit. Yeah.
Yes, I don't think you have to by law, but someone is always free to say, I have a conflict. I feel I have a conflict. I'm uncomfortable with this, and
Avoid the appearance of impropriety.
avoid the appearance, exactly. To the extent you can do so. You know what I'm saying?
It's a tough job.
It is.
Was there something in the policy that talked about waiting a year?
Yes, so.
That was what I thought you were most,
Yeah, but that can be set aside by
Okay.
at the request of the person who voted the legislature. But after a year, there's no restriction.
and within that.
And that's
year-
only high level. It's only people who've been involved with policy, the kinds of discussions that where they have information that is in some way confidential as a result of their decision. I think it's fine. Everyone should read it and make sure there's nothing there. People spent a lot of time reviewing it, and the staff, Rich and Brittany, went through it, and Chris went through the final version and corrected everyone's errors. He's not even smiling. He's not even listening.
He's multitasking.
So,
When you're not deep in the weeds or something, it's easy to see the,
yeah.
I don't want to take credit for that.
But the other thing to keep in mind with this is that it can be modified if we do discover we've made some mistake that no one saw.
like political witch hunts.
Now, that's
That's covered under section 3, 2.
Exactly.
Which
Well, we've
hunts?
never had a political witch hunt in the county as far as I know. So I don't, that wasn't a.
There's never any politics in it.
So, okay. So are we ready to vote?
Yes,
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. And Mr. Pinckney,
I think there's two resolutions that have been through committee. We got them as a bundle.
could we separate these two, Mike?
And PL1 authorizing filling of a full-time administrative assistant within the Department of Planning and Economic Development due to a pending retirement.
Thank you. Could we have a motion for PL1
So moved.
and a second?
Second for discussion.
First and second. Okay, if I may, I apologize. I missed that meeting. I had some questions, I think, several of which I shared with you all before. But my specific questions are at this point of these. First is, I don't think we have a resignation. And so this is an anticipated resignation, which is, as far as I'm concerned, in the, we're all concerned, it's a risky thing to do, to begin to fill a position that's not actually vacant, regardless of intent. So I don't think there's resignation, is there?
It's a retirement, isn't it?
But has it been?
We have a lot of.
Do you have anything, Lisa?
I don't think we have no seat.
Yeah, so that's a concern of mine, that until someone says I'm retiring on this date, or I resign because of this date, I don't think we have anything to fill, quite frankly. I think that's a concern. My second concern is this is a minimum of 4 or 5 month transition. That is a long time for any position. And the resolution references that there's a plan. And wondering if it would be possible to distribute the plan prior to the alleged meeting.
Well, I'm sorry to miss that meeting, but I think Steve went in length and discussed what that plan was. And I'm sorry that you didn't get the gist of it or, you know, I think you've had a conversation with him on it, but it might not satisfy what you're
No, I haven't
looking
had,
for your plan.
yeah, I haven't had a conversation with him. So, not,
Chris, somebody else has to speak.
So whenever you're ready.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that I think it's prudent to have a training period. I can't speak to the planning department, but in the jobs that I have had, I'm always a trainee for a period of time, like they're not a trainee or going on probation or whatever. So like when I went from guard, there was traineeship, and when I went to parole officer, there was a probationary period where you're sort of mentored by the appropriate staff. So in my mind, I think it's prudent to have that sort of intellectual capacity transferred on. Although your point is well taken that a retirement date should be at least discussed, but I think it's important with regard to the 5 months. I think that's.
So is that going to be our policy going forward? Do you think? I mean, that's my other concern. Are we saying, well, when anyone leaves, from now on, we're going to shadow? 'Cause this isn't training, this is shadowing. This is sitting next to someone and watching them work.
Well, again, I'm not sure that that's, I guess I would say that I think it would behoove you to speak with Mr. Lynch, because that's not the impression that I got from it. I thought that there's a certain degree of just knowledge that has been,
So you guys saw the plan at that meeting?
I think he
Listen to
articulated.
Listen to the plan. This is interpretation of the plan. There's this pamphlet that you may be looking for. I don't think it exists. And I don't think it exists in a lot of the other departments either.
Yeah.
The guy's explaining to you as a department head what he feels he needs to replace this person who is not giving you official or paperwork yet. Okay, other than that, I don't know what we're questioning here. I really don't. I mean, their description, if I heard it right, was it is a process of a length of time of seeing the day-to-day operations. I don't think it's just one segment or 2 segments or 3 segments. They're in a pamphlet or a booklet or a job description. In that particular case. It's just my own spin.
Ms. Daly and then Mr. Lattimore.
I mean, and I wasn't part of the committee and I didn't go after the vote happened into executive session either, but, I've never seen where we hire the exact same title and we have people in the same office, in the same title for 5 months to try to transition someone from their retirement. So I think 5 months seems to me like a pretty long period of time, but even before that, I've been working with Ray about this potential local law and a transition plan for him to exit as the DCS. And we made it perfectly clear that he needs to put his intentions in writing. He can't expect us to start advertising potentially for a commissioner and having the community services board look to fill him as the DCS till he leaves if we don't have a firm plan of what he's doing. So I don't know if there's an official letter of resignation, but all I know is this resolution says effective August 2nd, fill the exact same title so that they can work together potentially through the end of December. And that does seem, I've not seen that happen and for that period of time.
Well, I'll follow up I'll follow up with Steve. I was hoping that that we would have information for it. I can follow up with it. So I'm comfortable with it. So I don't know what we do about I can't vote for something if there's no date. I think 5 months is too long anyway, personally, but I think absolutely we can't be going out and advertising to fill positions that we don't have a resignation for. There is no position to fill until someone resigns.
Vice Chairman
No,
Petrus.
go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Lattimore.
Well, I mean, I was a volunteer for the planning board for 10 years and I've been up here for 12 years. And I just think that in regards to planning, we have one of the greatest opportunities of all time with all this infrastructure money coming. And we should have grant writers and planners, and we should have at least 10 projects to throw in front of our different congressmen and senators and really have something off the shelf. And I don't think that's there, but I mean, we should have more resources in that department, especially now. This is a golden opportunity for the county, put us back on the map with jobs and just getting the funding. Got a little taste with 14 million or whatever we got, but it's been underfunded for years. We try to do the thing on State Street. I don't know whether that's the right move, but we should have a planning department that's ready to go.
But this isn't adding resources to the planning
No,
department, it's
I'm just
making a
saying,
transition plan for
You're
someone.
restructuring the finance department, you're restructuring, that department should be looked at, especially now.
Yeah, that'd be great. I didn't realize that was part of the plan. I'll mention that when talking to Mr. Lynch.
Well, we should have a plan,
I,
bigger than what.
yeah. Great, but- And you got a final thing?
Yeah, just real quick, just to make sure that I think it's important that I add this. That it was my understanding, and please someone correct me if I'm wrong, that, due to unfilled positions, there won't be any,
Financial impact.
yes, thank you.
But yeah, that's.
But you could, that's how we got it, you can finish my sentence.
But, no. Okay.
Keith, this is Tucker. Can I add a thought?
Yes.
I completely get what you're saying. There's no position fit to fill until there's an empty position to fill. But on the flip side of that, it sounds like planning is actually planning ahead. I don't think anybody just kind of used their spidey sense to anticipate a retirement coming up. I'm guessing there must have been some sort of discussion, without getting too far into personnel matters. But to wait for the position to become open and then to start the conversation about filling it, I think we need to really be afraid of leaving an empty position for 5 to 6 months, which is probably what it would take in reality to fill. Especially right now with everything that's hurling towards our planning department over the next year, anticipating what's coming money and project wise. I think it's a wise move on their part to get somebody in there that will be trained and ready to just take over when the time comes.
If it comes.
And, I'm certainly not opposed to some kind of transition to fill that position. If the intent is that the person in the position is going to be leaving at the end of December, I don't think it's unreasonable to start giving a 3-month transition period, but 5 just seems like a long time. And at this point, it's unknown whether the incumbent plans to stay till the end of the year or not. I don't know what the plan is.
Okay.
The other concern I have is it may take us 5 months to find a candidate. By the way things have been going over here over the last year of us trying to fill positions, that the pool is not very deep out there. So, maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to dip our toes in it and see what bites.
Mr. Vitale, you got a comment, and then Mr. Foley, and then Mr. King.
Big difference between, advertising a position and actually the resolution is to hire. But I think 4 or 5 months is excessive. I believe that you should have a letter of retirement in hand before we even talk about how long we have somebody shadow. And I have to totally agree with Mr. Lattimore that several of us during that meeting talked to Mr. Lynch about really looking at the department and seeing where we can take advantage of a lot of the grants that are out there and everything right now. But I just can't support it the way it is right now. I think I could support it if there was some kind of adjustment to everything here, and along with having a firm retirement date from the employee.
Mr. Foley?
Mr. Chair, I apologize for coming late. But I do remember this resolution pretty well at planning, being in executive session. I think that there's two different views right now. There's a policy that needs to maybe happen on what the legislature overall thinks about having a shadow period or an overlapping period or some type of transition period overall for all of these positions within the county. Just so that we maybe have some type of standard that we think is allowable. Because what I'm hearing now is some people think that the transition period is good. It allows people to kind of get up to speed. Some people don't think that that's the case. Other people think it maybe should be 2 months, 3 months, or 5 months successive, but 3 months is fine. Maybe standardizing that thought process and that policy would be beneficial for us. In regards to this particular thing, I think that Steve is one of the department heads that will sometimes get the benefit of the doubt because he's always been rock solid. And, he's saying that the planning department would function at the same level, if not better, with this transition in place. And I tend to take that as word that, and I'll support it certainly. On top of the plan that he already laid out, which we always try to ask for, and he did really well with that too. I'm sad for people that weren't at planning because they did get a pretty thorough layout what the vision is for this specific resolution.
And now I will ask that plan be shared with the legislature. I don't think the plan is executive session material unless I'm wrong, Mr. Attorneys.
Sorry.
It does not have to do with employment or particular person, it has to do with the plan. So. And it should be so.
Prior to the next meeting, is it move it through in this committee and then?
Well, we'll see. We haven't had it
Okay.
yet. I'm gonna ask him to share, but it was done.
The only thing I was gonna say left, that was, I totally agree that, I thought there was a lot of the date on it, and I support that 100% myself. The length of the time, he did mention to us one night here, I believe, in the executive session that Sue has up to 5 weeks of retirement time or, time off that she trade in or whatever. So I think that was going to shorten the 5 month period to start with 5 month period.
And that potentially could be clarified in the letter, my effective last day of work would be this day. If that's your intent to get paid out.
And that's fine, that's a decision.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that people do not have a quote unquote right to take vacation before they retire. You have a retirement date or a termination date, and it's up to the employer, up to us to determine whether or not you take vacation beforehand or we pay you out. So, and it can go either way, but it's good. It's a good point. Yeah, so, okay, are we ready to vote? Okay, so, all in favor of PL one as it's presented, say aye.
Aye.
The Tucker,
Yes,
are you a yes?
I am in favor.
So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. The opposed? It's 3, 4, 3, it passes. Thank you very much. Okay, PL 2,
Who were the opposed? Daily Batman and
and Vitale.
thank you.
Thank you. PL 2,
Adopting the local law for the year 2021, the local law authorizing 12 and 13-year-old licensed hunters to hunt deer with a firearm or crossbow during the hunting season with the supervision of an adult licensed hunter pursuant to the Environmental Conservation Law Section 110935.
move it.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion on this one? All in favor? Any opposed? Passes. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tucker, Public Works.
Mr. Chair, Public Works has 3 resolutions. I would like to bundle PW 1 and 2, if I could.
Could we have a motion to bundle 1 and 2?
Move it.
Second?
Okay, so is there any discussion on 1 and 2? This is the restoration of the masonry, the parapet masonry at the historic post
We
office.
have to separate one?
No, no, 2/3 only of the ledge.
Yeah.
Done.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And and then 2 is authorization to purchase the highway equipment is listed in the as an amendment to the original resolution. Any discussion? All in favor? Oh, wait, Tim's got a question. Yes,
Were they bundled?
just
1
1
and
and
2.
2.
1 and 2.
But they're out of
They're
order.
not in order there.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's what's screwing you up.
Yeah, I was gonna say, okay, yeah, I have a lot to say about 3.
All in favor?
I,
Any opposed? It passes.
We have PW 3, which I'm sure Tim has a lot to say about, but after our discussion on GO2, I'm more confused than ever, so I will err on the side of a caution, and I would like to excuse myself from voting on this one.
So it's an ethical question, is that what?
I'll move PW 3 for discussion.
Okay, PW 3 is moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
There's a second. Mr. Vitale? That was Mr. Petrus and Vitale, Amanda. Okay, is there, Mr. Lattimore, you have discussion on this?
Well, I mean, NICEAG is a fine company and it's just what's happening in the electrical business right now is confusing. I mean, the governor has got this vision to rewire the whole state and we got a lot of solar projects coming in, and I know there's a solar project going out there, and we're the electrical cost of running the nursing home is expensive. What the governor's done is shutting down the nuke plants, especially Indian Point down in New York City. Supplies about 30% of the New York City's power. There's going to be a very expensive charges on electric in the future. And I know that our magazines that we get from our county news had indicated that micro grids, counties are going to be very, very attractive for business. And I'd like to make sure that once you give up ground to NICEAG, it's very hard to get it back. So I'm not too popular of power utilities at this point. And it's going to get worse. Surcharges are going to get worse. We have one of the largest consumers of energy on the NICEAG grid, which is a steel mill. I'm very concerned about other states having less costs, like TVA down in the south. Their all-in rate for everybody is 4 cents. Our all-in rate up here is like 14 and going up. So it's going to be very challenging for us to get economic development when our electric rates are so high. Our workers' comp rates are so high. Our property rates are so high. Just the cost of doing business in New York is so high. We should be very careful in regards that this is one hurdle. Energy is a big hurdle going forward.
I think though, if I agree with everything you said. The problem is that CH4 is shutting down. So we're not gonna have power, and they're shutting down. What's the date?
till October, right?
No, they have shut down already somehow
Till October, right?
until October 1.
Okay, so it's already happened. So right now we're buying it. Scott must be buying. So is stormwater eating the difference? But
The soil and water is selling directly to us for what they're getting power from NICEAG and their
so and if we go with, and also correct me if this isn't correct, but if we go to some other source at some point, a year from now, we still have to be connected to NICEAG. The only time we don't have to be is if we have something on that property that we use as our internal, stuff. So this is, I don't know how we get around that.
From a regulatory standpoint,
Yeah, what's that, Rich?
I said the way the regulations are structured, they're set up to favor statewide utilities, et cetera. So you can't have a production facility transmitting power, without connecting to NICEAG. So, I mean, unless we had neighboring properties, we couldn't produce electricity on it. In order to get off of the grid, you would have to have a production facility either on your property or on neighboring property, so that the two properties were directly connected. So apart from having a production facility right next door, you're not getting off of the grid. And even if you have a production facility, you still have to have the backup, and that's the problem with the digesters. The cost of the backup now is, increase the total cost well beyond what we would pay if we just plugged directly from the grid.
Which is exactly Tim's point, which is, good point. All of this, the surcharges and,
Are gonna be coming down the pike
exactly.
hard and heavy.
Right. So it's a problem.
But if taking this action is allowing us to connect with NICEAG, and then long-term to get power from NICEAG in lieu of CH4.
Or somewhere
Or,
else.
right, because the ability to get it from CH4 cost-wise is much more expensive.
Yes, compared to getting it off.
Okay, are we ready to vote? We have one abstention already. Yeah. Ms. Whit. So, all in favor? Any opposed?
No,
One opposed? Or rather, Mr. Pinckney. Amanda. So,
Thank you.
I'm not a member of the board.
next week. We can vote next week.
Next week.
Okay, judicial and public safety, Mr. Vitale.
I'm gay. I got a gay with it.
It's always nice to pull up the end.
Well, we do have an executive session, so you can't quite.
Judicial and public safety had 4 resolutions. They all went through committee. I'd like to have someone offer them up as a bundle if you'd like.
Could we have a motion to bundle?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Staley, second from Mr. Pinckney. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good, they pass. Okay, we do need an executive session, so if I could have a motion to go into executive session for discussion of contract issues.
I'll move it forward.
Second?
Second.
Yeah. Anyone opposed?
under 10 minutes.
Under 10 minutes, Mr. Jennings.
That's what we're hoping to, yeah.
Mr. Babin?
And I think what you said, you have a car, you told me to go, what, about 45 minutes an hour? There were no questions.
Keith, will there be any business after this?
There will not be business. after this.
Thank you.
Yeah, we will need to leave the room.
I mean, there's.
Yes, and Brittany Massey sent the 8x8 link to join it for anyone who's offline or on.
Who do we have online other than, virtually other than Tucker?
I believe it's just Tucker, actually.
So Tucker, can you join us? Or how?
Link.
Tucker, I'll text you the 8x8 link, okay?
All right. See you there.
All right.
Big difference when you're a kid, you're 12, 13, not so much. When you're 7.
I do cognitive, CBT, and whatever kind of. Right, that's the fact. I mean, they don't utilize, they don't think about the stuff.
You guys?
Oh, I can't.
I got you. Okay, we have a motion to adjourn.
Sorry.
Anyone object?
I do, I want to stay
We're
here.
adjourned.
We gotta wear masks, so.